Alright, so before I say anything what I'm about to say in this video, I want to do something that I have never done before on YouTube. And that is a random shout out, as over the years YouTubers have give shout outs to other YouTubers who deserve all the love and positivity and support in this world. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and the shout out goes to a couple in YouTube. That goes to Tricia and Cam's channel here. Down in the description box. Go there and subscribe to them, as I want to get that to say to them congratulations to the both of you if you're watching this video. Want to say congratulations on your pregnancy announcement, and I hope your baby boy or girl comes with all the wealth and all the good health in the world. So congratulations on your pregnancy announcement, and you both of you deserve all, like I said, the love, all the love and support and positivity in the world. So yeah, go there on their channel and go there, subscribe and like their videos. So yeah, without that way, let's get to talk about this video that I never really clicked in my head until very few days ago, where I realized it was the 25th anniversary, and where I see some shadow in the last few days with people talking about the Montreal Screwjob. I thought to myself, well, why not make a video about the 25th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob that took place in Survivor Series 1997, as Shawn Michaels faced Bret Hart for the WWF title. It was a monumental moment that pretty much changed everything in the company, and the wrestling world was pretty much never looked back on this situation, and it's something that I don't think has pretty been unmatched until probably the AEW brought out in Chicago from 2 months ago from CM Punk and the Elite. I already covered that as it is. Go there and go on my channel here and see as I covered that thing on my channel. But here to talk about the Montreal Screwjob. And yeah, this was pretty much the craziest thing that ever happened to wrestling ever. Like from in-ring wise to the on-screen wise, and especially the backstage side. And in 25 years later, we still talk about it, and I think it's something we probably won't stop talking about it unless we have to, because it's been pretty much well documented, this whole thing, and it's something like when it comes with this Montreal Screwjob thing, it's something that you really can't say about it without the events leading up to it. And you can't even say the leading up events without talking about of how personal the Bret Hart Shawn Michaels rivalry really became a rival throughout the entire company from probably about 96 to 97. That whole thing, since They built that Michaels Hart rematch as that year's Survivor Series as 18 months in the making, as their last match was at WrestleMania 12 in their 16-minute Iron Man match, which probably was the early catalyst of this whole thing. As like you go there, WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart and for the title, and like something there was something that Michael said in the ring. I don't think people have said it like to get him the fuck on my ring. Or I don't think Shawn was meant to say. I think he meant to say like. I think he said something to the ref to like make sure until Brett is still in the ring, because I think what happened was like Bray was like out of the ring. Michaels was saying something to like wait until Bray gets to the ring, or like he sits down in the ring as most wrestlers do when they also that. And I remember when that happened, Bray Hart just slide out of the ring and just left the ring, and like looking kind of angry. And I don't know, like when I remember that happened when Brett took out like the singlet and stuff. Now, now look, I wasn't even born at the time. I wasn't a fan at the time. But there was, but I can see for that footage where like Bret Hart, how Bret Hart exited the arena at WrestleMania 12, and it's like I don't think it wasn't too pleased, not too plus. It's the best way to say it. Not too plus about dropping the belt to Shawn Michaels, and I think maybe it has something to do with the Shawn Michaels new contract that he got. As I think he said it, I heard he said it in his book, that in Shawn Michaels' book, that he said like in early in the 1996, it probably would have to have been that he got a new contract as he was in the midst of his world title push and world title run. And Shawn Michaels made the agreement to Vince like nobody will be paid any higher than Shawn Michaels, other than probably The Undertaker, out of respect. So yeah, as and yeah, that's what kind of spearheaded this whole animosity between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, since after WrestleMania 12, Bret Hart was like gone. Like he wasn't seen on 90, pretty much throughout much of 96, as he was on hiatus. I think he wrestled on some European tour and stuff. And at the time he was pretty much in negotiations about his new WWF contract and his WCW contract, as at the time he was starting to talk about with Eric Bischoff, as Bischoff said it and Bret said it in interviews throughout the years. Bret was really like Bret had some thoughts about going to WCW in '96. Yeah, and the deal that Bret was like making was like a 9 million offer deal for WCW, and I think Bret has said it in like the Wrestling with Shadows, as I actually recently had watched the whole thing of the Bret Hart Wrestling with Shadows documentary, that he's always been a guy high about money, and he was, and like WWF, WCW were trying to collide pretty much for him. So yeah, he was in the midst of that, but in the end, Bret Hart decided to opt in to not go with the offer with the WCW 9 million deal offer that he got, but instead opted for a 20-year contract. That's right, 20-year contract that he signed in October '96, where I think the deal was like he would have like 3 years as like an active wrestler, and then will pretty much work pretty much behind the scenes throughout the company. And Brett will make sure like he will stay for the rest of his professional life working with the WWE, as he pretty much did it out of loyalty to Vince. And that deal, also that deal, where we're going back to what I said about Shawn Michaels when he signed his new deal, he had an agreement that will make him the highest paid guy in the company. Well, Bret's new contract at 96 pretty much trumped it what was Shawn Michaels was making, as that as now the new contract with Bret, the 20-year offer, pretty much will make him the highest paid offer in the company. And yeah, that pretty much spearheaded the animosity between Bret and Shawn, as any friendship they might even have, of they even had in the first place, was pretty into dishes around that time in '96. And Shawn, this was, but you gotta look, this was at a time when Shawn's personal life was pretty much at an all-time worst. As yeah, it's been well documented how much built up the guy really was. And funny enough, arguably in the win, he was probably at his best. Like, I would say 95, 96, 97, and maybe 98 if you want to count that. He was probably at his best in the ring. But behind the scenes, he was at an all-time worst with that. And yeah, it reflected so much kind of in the on screen what he was doing, as months went by, as like like the fans were kind of started to turn against Shawn Michaels. Like I remember, like the Survivor Series '96 match against Psycho said, he was pretty much getting pulled out of that Madison Square Garden crowd. And yeah, you can, and it's funny with this fear in the riot, as you can kind of see the excitement shift about the direction in that company from '96 to '97, as they were pretty much getting their ass kicked with the rape by WCW for 8 straight weeks, as it's been documented. So yeah, business by WWF was not in that great praise, especially '97. And we go to WrestleMania 13. Where Stone Cold wins the Royal Rumble, and I think in the next pay-per-view, it was the Final Four, they call it, as it was supposed to be Stone Cold, Undertaker, Psycho Sid, and Bret Hart for the. It was supposed to be a four-way battle royal, what I think it was, for a shot at Shawn Michaels Championship at WrestleMania 13. As I think when Stone Cold won the '97 Royal, it was filled with controversy, as he was eliminated, but referee never saw this. So Austin came back to the ring, eliminated Bret Hart, and won the Rumble, and pretty much settled that full weight match between him, Austin, Sid, Taker, and Bret, and that will lead to who will win the title shot at WrestleMania 13. And as his wrestling history story will say that Bret Hart was gonna win this one, as he was pretty much going to win this match and will face Shawn Michaels for the title at WrestleMania 13. And considering what happened, how Shawn Michaels was angry at Bret with the new contract stuff, he wasn't pretty much in all thrill with, he wasn't have much of any thrill in the world to pull over Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, as next thing you know, it led to the infamous lost his smile promo with the knee injury, or how he was that he couldn't defend championship at WrestleMania because of it. And it's so fucking funny when you look back. Michaels faked a knee injury, vacates the belt, as the full weight that was supposed to be for a WrestleMania title shot was now for the championship, which Bret Hart won, and drop it right back to Sid, so that way Sid can defend it against The Undertaker, as it will lead Bret Hart facing against Steve Austin in a submission match, which to me is, in my opinion, was pretty much WrestleMania greatest match ever, as that might be a story for another time if I ever get to talk about WrestleMania 13. So that happened, and Shawn Michaels was pretty much back the next fucking month. He was pretty much at WrestleMania 13, guest commentating Sid vs. The Undertaker for the title that he pretty much vacated and laid down because he didn't want to pull over Bret Hart. So fucking, it's so funny to look back at all of this stuff, and yeah, it was pretty much a mess in that early 1997 portion. So yeah, so Michaels vacates the belt to in the ring. As the months went on, Shawn's behavior got worse. I think some people say he was trying to get fired, because pretty much the reason part of Shawn Michaels' drug abuse and pill up problems is that Hall and Nash left to go to WCW, which those were Shawn's friends, and yeah, and that's kind of made his problem, his attitude even worse, and it led to the infamous backstage fight at like a Raw in June '97, where, as the story goes, Bret Hart pulled up a huge chunk of Shawn's hair and put it back, and it was a chaotic night, like it was, I believe Punch was doing that night, and yeah, that backstage fight happened, and I think Shawn was suspended at that time in '97 for about a month, and I think Shawn at that night took a good piece of hair that he lost. He showed it to Vince and wanted to quit right there, and some people at the time thought Shawn was trying to get fired and was trying to leave WWE to go to his bodies with Hall and Nash at WCW. And there was even a picture I saw recently with Shawn Michaels wearing the outsider shirt, as yeah, that was crazy. But if that wasn't crazy enough, Shawn Michaels literally came back the next month before SummerSlam as he was going to be the referee for the Bret Hart Undertaker match for the championship at SummerSlam. Which, like, like, you think about how crazy it was with Bret attacking Shawn for real backstage. Shawn wanted to quit right there. He wanted no part of it. It was a toxic, unsafe working environment in his mind. And he comes back the next month to officially a match of the very same guy he fucking had a fight the month before. Like, what the fuck? And yeah, like, maybe that's what's spearheaded this whole thing of Vince wanting to get out of that 20-year contract of Bret Hart. So, yeah, so maybe that was the deal when Vince made to Shawn that if he comes back, he's gonna get rid of Bret. Which we go to SummerSlam, Bret Hart actually wins the WWF title. And the next month, at like the Raw MSG in Madison Square Garden, if you know that September the 22nd, September the 22 edition of Raw, the Raw MSG, Stone Cold stunning Vince the first time. Cactus Jack made his debut in the company. The Three Faces of Foley. But was even the big story coming out of that was by 97 they were facing financial issues and all that stuff. Like he was like WWE had a lot of problems in 97. And yeah, like the financial wise it was pretty much down the drain at that time, and regrettably Vince made an offer to Bret that he wasn't going to be paying any more of what Bret was making at that time, and told Bret to go talk to Bischoff to make the deal that was offered to him a year before this to go work with WCW. He had his full pleasure this time because he wasn't in a commitment. He wasn't in a position where he was going to be paying Bret how much of what he was making. And yeah, it was a pretty complicated situation. I think Vince had to be making in this thing as Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart used to go through issue were at an all-time high. And I think he was in a situation that he could have only kept one of them. And for more like reliability reasons, like, and for more like who had the most to gain of staying, I think Vince realized that he probably could go with Shawn, as at the time he was still one of the best wrestlers at that time, and I think he thought he had more mileage out of Shawn than with Bret Hart, which at the time he was a multiple time world champion. I think he was getting up there in age, and I think he thought in his mind that he wasn't going to be worth much to justify keep paying him, and he thought he didn't need at the time. So he let Bret, so he gave Bret his permission to go talk to his father, give him his word to go talk to WCW, and yeah, and Bret has said he didn't want to. As he said, he wanted to work for the rest of his professional life with WCW. And yeah, and he wasn't almost thrilled, let's just say, about him going to WCW, and kind of justifiably so, as you saw how that WCW run ended up being. We'll get to that more towards the end of this video, but yeah, like, and you can even see wrestling with how gutted he was about him leaving WWF, and yeah, and it was kind of crushing if you were a wrestler fan at that time to see one of your favorite wrestlers, Bret Hart, leaving the company after all these years to go work to WCW. That's gotta be kind of gut wrenching, if I be honest. So yeah, and also I think Bret has said he wasn't pretty much happy with the direction that WWF is going with toward the more rescue stuff, the sexual stuff, what pretty much became the Attitude Era, and Brett wasn't pretty much found with that, as he has he has 2 kids at the time, and I don't think they felt it was washable. It was fitting enough for it to even watch that. So, and I think that what got at what that also being. I think that's what made him decide to want to work with WCW in a way. As much as they wanted to leave, I think it was in a situation where he kind of had to leave and stuff. So yeah. And then, funny enough, like, the pay-per-views buyer was starting to go up a bit, and Vince saw this influx of money that were coming in, and Vince thought at that time that now he could afford to pay Brett. Now, then when he talked about at that September 22 edition of Raw backstage, where he said he couldn't pay Bret Hart. So he thought now, like a month later, right before Survivor Series, now you could pay it. And Bret just thought, like, it's too late. Like, I think by that time he agreed to, like, it's too late. Like, he kind of signed the deal right there with WCW, and yeah, and that thing blew over, and yeah, and then it came to a house show in '97 where, as Bret has talked about it infamously, as Bret, I think he was talking to someone, maybe like Ken Shamrock, something like that. And then Shawn Michaels intervened, and Bret and Shawn had this infinite conversation about Bret talking to Shawn because they were gonna go with Shawn as Survivor Series. That the match was already made. And a month before this, Bret talked to Shawn backstage, and yeah, and Bret said to Shawn, like, we know we came to this point. It's a shame we even got to this point. But with how that he said to Shawn point blank, he is willing to throw any personal issue, any personal feelings aside just for business, and he will do the honest for Shawn in his last match at Survivor Series, as it was pretty much known that Survivor Series was pretty much going to be the last match for Bret at the time with the WWF, and he said to Shawn he will be willing to put him over, and they shook hands, Bret and Shawn, and then Shawn, being the prick that he was, pretty much said to Bret, I thanks, but I want to tell you something. I will not do the same to you that if you do the same to me, if you do this to me, I will not do the same thing to you. And yeah, that just one other comment for Shawn Michaels. Pretty much, pretty much was the main catalyst for everything that set up that will even get to this point with the Montreal Screwjob. And yeah, and also for Brett's 20-year contract, he has something that most wrestling fans will know as creative control, as he pretty much had his rights, as it will turn, he will have rights to not put over Shawn Michaels as Survivor Series. And yeah, throughout this, and from this thing, with Bray had this creative control and Shawn Michaels pretty much telling Bray that he will not go do the same with Bray putting over Shawn, that pretty much made Bray think like he's not gonna put over Shawn, and much less with the show being in his home country of Canada, he wasn't going to put over Shawn. And with all that stuff, like as much as you want to bring the two parties of Shawn and Brett and all that stuff, and in most cases it's true, at the end of the day, Vince McMahon and the WWE pretty much shot themselves at the foot with this whole thing, with this whole mess. Because, mind you, Vince put the belt on Bret at SummerSlam 1997. And the person he pinned, The Undertaker, was backstage at that show at Survivor Series. And I don't know, maybe just me, but if Vince was really that afraid, because Vince was kind of in the mindset, he had this thought like he thought in his mind that Bret would show up on Nitro the next night with the title belt, which I don't know about you, but did Vince really actually thought that Bret would show up the next night on Nitro with the title belt? As stories from what I heard, he could even legally showed up the next night on Nitro at the Survivor Series. As they actually thought he was shot to WCW Monday Nitro, and pretty much they were Medusa there and dropped the belt in the trash or something like that. Because Visual book something probably like that. But did you say if Vince was that desperate to really get the belt off of Bret, one of two things should happen. He should have not put the belt on Bret at SummerSlam. Or two, since Taker faced Shawn, because they had a feud at the time on screen, and he kind of got screwed over out of his Hell in a Cell match with Shawn at Bad Blood, the pay-per-view before Survivor Series with Kane debuted and costed The Undertaker the match. And with Bret and with Taker facing Bret at SummerSlam 3 months before, why not put Taker in the three-way at Survivor Series and let Undertaker take the pin from Shawn Michaels, since Bret made sure that he wasn't going to pull over Shawn at that show. So, yeah, it's pretty much Vince's fun. And also, I don't know. If Vince thought he could have paid Brett after he said he couldn't pay Brett to the amount of money the September Raw show in MSG, if he thought he could have paid him now after the buy of like the Bad Bill pay per view kind of went up and stuff, there was this influx of pay per view revenue. If Vince thought he could have paid now, why did he tell Brett at all at that Raw show in MSG that he wasn't going to be paid Brett as much? Like, if Vince was that if Vince was that desperate to really pay Brett, why he couldn't have waited until the pay-per-view revenue were starting to go up after that? Then he could have said to Brett, now I could pay you. Instead of telling him beforehand that he wasn't going to be paying him. He wasn't going to honor that 20-year contract he offered to Brett a year ago. Like, this whole thing could have been such an avoidable thing. And this whole like Brett School Brett thing is, again, like, if anybody was else to blame for this whole deal, it was Vince McMahon and WWF. Pretty much. So like this whole thing of a mess led to such a thing that we will get to this point as just as the Montreal Screwjob. And it had to be pretty fucking wild for all wrestling fans that to know coming in towards Survivor Series. And it was pretty much well known that Brett was going to be gone and he was going to WCW. But after that information was out there, and it was pretty wild for wrestling fans for this match. I think some consensus from wrestling fans like that of thinking what they were going to do. What they were going to do with the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels finish to the match as Bret was about to leave. And I heard stories for the ideas of whose idea was of the Montreal Screwjob. And people that said Jim Cornette or Triple H or Vince Russo. You know, maybe Russo kinda had a hand. I don't know how much he, but let's be honest, do you really believe Vince Russo that he kinda had a hand with it? I know he was in creative at that time, but what did he really have a hand? In my opinion, this is just me. I think it was a mixed combination of both Jim Cornette and Triple H, since Jim Cornette has said that he had this idea, this Screwjob idea for something happened in the 80s, and he took that and made it for this. And Triple H, who at the time was best friend with Shawn, I think he pretty much told Vince that he was leaving. Why not forcibly? Why not take him the belt? Why not take the belt off of Brett? That's what Triple H said to Vince. And yeah, and we get to this match. Survivor Series 97 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, WWF Championship. And right before I made this video, I actually watched the match itself. And the match itself, I would give them credit. Like, I don't think it was in the park because they had like 3 pay-per-view. They only had like 3 pay-per-view matches, like singles matches. Bret, Shawn Michaels, they had a match 5 years earlier at Survivor Series 92, and they had the WrestleMania 12 match. And I think out of all the 3, this match was probably the weakest out of the all 3. Like, the Survivor Series match in 92 was actually pretty fun. And WrestleMania 12, it was kind of the right match. I thought the match was really good despite kind of being long. At least I think they took their time and their place with their match. Like, and it's so fascinating when it comes with the WrestleMania 12 match and with this match here. As WrestleMania 12, it was pretty much a face match. They were both facing. And this match, they were pretty much both heels. And at the time, Bret was, I think he was still kind of a heel. He had this great run in 97. He had this interesting situation as a heel where he was a face in the US but a face everywhere. And he was pretty much the de facto face in this match against Shawn, who was also freshly a heel in this match. It's so fascinating how you see from that WrestleMania 12 match and for the start of the rivalry and by the end they were both very different people, and it reflected on the match as I still thought the match was good. It wasn't not a part of the Survivor Series 92 match or even the WrestleMania 12 match. So yeah, but I would give them credit is it felt like a fight, and it was kind of easy to do with two guys that pretty much hated each other's guts, as they were fighting all over the crowd, even the stage. They pretty much ran through this whole period of the match, but they were pretty much not in the ring, just fighting all over the kind of the arena, and even to say even for basement man walking in early towards the match, Ricky smash you something what was about to happen, and then you get to the match at the end. I think Bret hit off Hander from the top rope. He hit off Hander right in the very crucial point of the match. Shawn Michaels, I think, raked Bret in the eye. He was going for the sharpshooter, and Bret had said the original finish was that I think they were going to do a sharpshooter reversal kind of thing where Shawn was going to do a sharpshooter and then Bret was going to count it into his own. And I think he said the match was supposed to go another 25 minutes. In the end, Triple H was going to come in. Like I think the Hart Foundation was going to come out first, and then Triple H would come in, and that would cause a big DQ finish. And I think Bret is thought he will then the next ride drop the bell, like just like that in like a segment. But boys was he kind of on this as as the finish happened. Shawn Michaels lost in for the sharpshooter. Our handler was looking around and said, "Ring the bell!" Very out loudly, rings the bell. And you can kind of hear the crowd's turn on it. And they were bullying Shawn Michaels to the sharpshooter. And then when our handler rings the bell, pretty much unseen with Bird not even tapping at the time, you can kind of see a tone of the crowd like, what the fuck? Like, what did we just witness here? As Shawn Michaels and Bret look visibly angry, Bret Hart spits in the face of Vince, that you can see here. And yeah, Shawn Michaels went up to grab the belt. He was living, and then he was slowly, he was up and down. And they showed the Survivor Series logo at the end, and they cut that shit faster than you would think they were fat. They would cut a paper at that time. And yeah, that pretty much happened, and it's so crazy. Like the school job happens, And for as a wrestling fan at the time, like you didn't know what the fuck to think. Like it's something that when you watch live, you will never ever forget as long as you have lived. And after the match, Bret Hart, the Hart Foundation, Davey Boy Smith, and the British Bulldog and Owen Hart came out, and they were asking Bret like, "What happened?" Because they killed was missed. Like, what the hell happened? And yeah, like, and then Bret throw the monitor into the announce table, and then go to the crowd, and then they had the footage of the WCW stuff, and then Wrestling with Shadows, since they were the group were backstage in the whole thing, and yeah, like you saw footage in that documentary, as Vince had a black eye for Bret punching Vince after the match backstage and all that stuff. It was a crazy time if you were a wrestling fan at that time. And yeah, the wrestling business was never the same after this. As like Bret Hart went off to WCW, 8 days after this, Vince gave that pretty much condescending interview as you will ever see, as Vince talk about Bret screw Bret. I have no sympathy with Bret. That pretty much came to be what you all know to be now as the Mr. McMahon character, which I think is the greatest heel in the history of the business, and I don't think anyone will disagree me with that. So yeah, and within the month, you saw the creation of the Attitude Era, and yeah, like, like, what to say about this whole thing looking back at it 25 years later? As much as I think it could have been easily avoided so much things, so avoided so many things. At the end of the day, Vince McMahon and WWE kind of screwed themselves, but ended up being the best. But ended up working out in the best way possible. And yeah, like many people say, it's a work, it's not a work. Like look, when you look at back the all the events lead up, you kind of had to assume that it wasn't a work. Like there was only a thing that will tell you was a work in the events lead up. Here, kind of the match. But there were some things you can point it back to say, is there something going on here? Like, is it really a work? Because, first off, like, why would Bret Hart, when you look back at it, why would Bret Hart agree to take a charge? Like, if he had back in his mind, if they thought they were really gonna screw him over, why would he even agree to take a charge to defend fight Shawn Michaels, his arch nemesis? Like, like, why would he take that? So while there's some holes you can pay if it is really a work, in most areas it's kinda not. And yeah, as I think the Montreal Screwjob, as so many things could have been preventable, as much as many things were as preventable. Long term, I think pretty much kind of ended up being the the most important thing to ever happen to this company and all that stuff, and it pretty much changed the WWF as we all know. So yeah, so I and Bret Hart went out to that failure of a run WCW. Yes, WCW. Yeah, no idea what the fuck to do with it. But on the outside of the ref, it created Mr. the Man character, the creation of the Attitude Era, and the beginning of the McMahon Austin feud. So yeah, I think it ended up being the best thing to happen to the company, not so much to Bret Hart as yeah. If you saw that WCW one, it was pretty much a boss in most areas for Bret Hart. And yeah, he just wasn't the same after that. And even when he came back to the company in like 2010, yeah, it wasn't the same. As he had a match with Vince, which unfortunately couldn't live up to expectations people hold to because he had a stroke years before that. So yeah, so that is the Montreal Screwjob in Retrospective 25 years later. And this video is going to running long as it's going to be really long as I kind of think it will end up being because there was so much to cover in this Montreal Screwjob that the video kind of had to go along with it. But yeah, but it's really pretty running long here, so I'm gonna leave it here as that. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not, like it here, subscribe here in the button. Tell me what you think about this whole thing, the Montreal Screwjob. Is it preventable in the comment section below? And as always, I'm Jason Martinez, and I approve this message.